This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's access media station, Plains FM, and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
Today we're lucky enough to have Andrea Solzer in the studio with us, talking about her child who has recently had a diagnosis with autism. Beyond that, Andrea is a paediatric nurse and a baby feeding support counsellor, whom is also a dear friend of mine. So we're really lucky to talk all things autism with her today and her journey in that.
Thanks for joining us for Being Real Parents with me, Anna, and my colleague and buddy,
Kate. We work in the parenting space.
And it's here where we'll talk about our worlds as parents, the good, the not so good, and the hilarious, and mix this with what we know about behaviour and psychology.
Hey, Andrea, so lovely to have you with us.
Hi, Anna. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me today. It's really exciting. And hi, Kate.
Yeah, hi. It's so exciting. I'm looking forward to this chat.
Thank you. Same for me. It's my first time, so I'm a bit nervous, but I think that's normal.
I think it's very normal, actually. I always see that nervousness is just our want and capacity to do a good job.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice. And so do you want to talk to us a little bit more about you? I've given you a brief intro, but there's so much more to you.
Yeah. So, my name is Andrea, and I use the pronouns she and her.
Nice.
And I'm originally from Germany. Sometimes my accent is still there somewhere. I've been living in New Zealand for 15 years, so that's home for me. I've got 3 children. They were all born here. 2 girls and a boy, 13, 10 and 8. And I'm here with my partner. We live in Littleton, and this is an awesome place for a very neurodiverse family like we are. And yeah, so usually I'm there for my kids most, I'm a mum kind of the majority of the time.
all of the time.
Yeah, all of the time. Yeah, that's right.
And
but also I'm a paediatric nurse, and my passion lies in supporting young families or new families, especially when they have a baby come on board. And I am really interested and specialised in supporting the families with feeding a baby, breastfeeding, bottle feeding, you call it. It's got a million of different ways of feeding a baby, and even beyond the first year. And that's my absolute true passion, to support the whole family, support the grandparents, support the mums, the dads, the partners, everyone, and this is where my true passion lies. Yeah,
that's beautiful. And you have your own organisation called Baby Basics. So if you want to look Andrea up and work with her with regard to feeding your Pepe, then please do. I'd highly recommend that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. And then today we're also going to talk to you about one of your children who's had a diagnosis of autism. And I was really keen to kind of bring you in here to share what that journey has been like.
Yes.
And because we hear about it a lot, don't we, in our own work with parents.
Yeah.
And it's different for everybody, but then there's also some similarities, and I think it's good to get those stories out there so that people don't feel alone in that. Yeah.
Yeah, so for us, this is very new. So we decided to have a diagnosis being done, because some parents I know, they don't want to go that route.
Yeah.
But for us, it was important. We wanted to know because we've always, we always knew something was a bit different with our one of our daughters. Right from the get-go, actually. And not very obvious, what I had to learn, that autism comes, of course, on a broad spectrum, and it presents in very different ways. Most people actually think, worst case scenario, where a child might be non-verbal, like not speaking or just being totally disengaged. This is not the case for my daughter, Lily. She is actually kind of social, but she has got other things going on, and throughout her early years, now in hindsight, it's very obvious, but while we were in there, we struggled a lot with our parenting, and it had a big impact on myself mentally. And then we entered a stage where I actually didn't know what to do. And we came to the diagnosis actually via a detour through other things. And so eventually end of last year in October, we had the official diagnosis of autism or ASD, and they're now in levels. So she's a level 1, which used to be called Asperger's, but that is a terminology we don't use anymore. It's kind of levels now. Some people wonder where the level's coming from. So, and also we have ADHD on top of it as well. I also have my other daughter who's dyslexic. My partner's dyslexic, so we're quite open for neurodiversity, and that's probably where we approach this very openly. And it's been, it's a very fresh journey for me. And actually what you said, the loneliness was a big thing for me to start with. But you don't need to be lonely. There are actually lots of people out there to support. Yeah.
You're listening to Being Real Parents with Kate and Anna on Plains FM 96.9.
I love the way that you talk about this as diversity, and I'm a big fan of that term, neurodiversity, and neurotypical, because it takes us into just difference as opposed to diagnosis or disorder, which is one of my pet hates. But I also am really interested in you talking about reflecting on your parenting and thinking that this was that you take it so personally, don't you? Well, yes. I'm saying you, but I think that parenting is such a personal thing anyway, and when we are reflective beings, we can't help but have it be or see it as our own fault. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Like I always saw the behaviour, the meltdowns, or, the things I thought, oh my God, she's just, or not just my daughter, every child often I think, oh my God, she's doing this to really annoy me and to really kind of poke in their sweet spots.
Yeah.
And, then I kind of was like trying to, I've did lots of courses and learnings, and then I said, oh, actually, no, this is not against me. It's just often they can't help it. Yeah. And I really I did some tuning, like a course, tuning into kids or emotional coaching, and that was the best course I've ever done in my life. Honestly, it's for any interactions with human beings, not just children. And it was that kind of actually just sitting with the emotion, listening, and to see what has actually happened way earlier, what led to that outburst or thing. And that really opened up a lot of doors for me where I was stuck for so long in terms of parenting, and where I have changed massively. Yeah. And it was so good for me because I actually got to a point where I was really stressed and aggressive, and I know you don't always have a wonderful day with your children. There are days where you actually just want to go on annual leave as a mum, but you can't do that. But that would be great.
Wouldn't it? Basically, our annual leave is like in the toilet for about 5 minutes, isn't it?
But then someone is poking, and my kids talk through the door. But you know what I mean. And for me, that you don't always need to fix things. Just
sit and be with
that. And actually just sitting there. At some point when I was really stressed, I just sat down and I started knitting or crochet, and I didn't know what to do. So I just sat there doing this, and I waited. And usually the whole meltdown so it dissolved almost by itself. It was my daughter at some point, she'd come and sat next to me, and then we looked at each other, and then I was able to colour, and I was like, that was way easier than me trying, what do you need? What can I do? What's going on? Just tell me.
It's so hard in that moment though, hey? Like even you said at the start of the conversation around looking back in hindsight, you'd notice that things always kind of felt a little bit different. But in the moment, when we're in amongst today, it doesn't feel like that. It's very easy to look back and think, oh, maybe I should have responded in a different way.
Yeah. But to be honest, I find it really hard to respond in a different way because we are kind of a product of our parents and their parents, and it's really difficult to kind of zoom out and observe yourself.
Yeah.
And that was actually something I was really surprised. I had like a light bulb moment where we were talking about different parenting styles, and then there was one scenario where I almost thought, oh my God, this is my parents. And then I realized I'm doing exactly the same, but of course we do because this is what we've learned.
Yeah.
And then, but the realization was so good for me because then I was able to change.
Yeah, even though we swear to God we're not going to parent like our parents, we just fall there, don't we? Just it's the vortex of parenting.
Yes.
Tell me about how you got to recognising Lily as, being neurodiverse.
Yeah. So because we have, my partner is dyslexic and so is my oldest daughter, I think we have a bit of a censor when it comes, to that. Or we're quite open and not afraid of looking into that. But to be honest, it was actually school who pointed me in that direction to begin with, because I wasn't really thinking down the autism route, really, because I, like most people, really didn't really know what it meant and what it looked like. And then our deputy principal, because she's amazing, she said, she didn't want to really say it too harsh, but she said, I think, if we teach like we would teach autistic children, it really works for her. And I said, and she said, regardless of if she's been diagnosed or not, but we see it does work for her. And we had started, because there are also some social skills or some behavioural difficulties for Lily at school and in a social environment. So we had actually been pointed into a direction from Manaaki to maybe see if there's some developmental issues going on. So we went down that route. And then eventually, after quite a lot of testing, they suggested the OT there. She said, we think there is a bit more to it. Okay. And then they offered us to go further into a diagnostics or not, and we decided to do that. And
awesome.
Yeah. And that's how it actually then came about.
And did you do that through the public system, or did you go privately with that? Because I know that there's two routes.
Yes, so we did it through the public system, and I think from the first, because we went to the GP with the recommendation of Manaaki, and also the GP said, well, what do you want, Like, it's just so with girls, they said, there's nothing wrong with her. And I say, of course, nothing wrong with her, but there are difficulties. Took about 2 years in total, which is actually quite fast.
Yeah.
And because we had done previously, so many forms to fill out. And the school has been so supportive. They filled out 1 million forms and questionnaires, and because we had done all that work and the social worker had helped us, that's why we eventually got quite a fast diagnosis in the end. But it definitely took, in total,
what a process,
2 years. Yeah.
Especially when you've got so many other things going on to have that process on top of.
I was really lucky to have such a supportive school and teachers. They really understood, and they did, because to fill out these forms is pages and pages and pages of questionnaires. So I was really lucky that they were really onto it and supported us in that journey. Yeah. And
did it feel like a straightforward journey, or did it feel like, no, you're shaking your head, no.
It wasn't straightforward, because you start at one point, like we started many years ago, where I was really struggling with parenting. It was when, the behaviour was just so challenging, where I I was at the end, I was exhausted. I had another child, you're tired. And so it was really, really difficult. I actually started off with, I thought I was doing something wrong. And that's what you said before, that we always reflect onto ourselves. And this is how it all kind of started off. And I don't think anyone is straightforward, because you're turning one stone and then the next. And then so you're kind of working your way towards, and then often things change throughout the way.
What would have helped make it more straightforward, do you think? Like, what do we need to know in order that this is easier for parents and kids?
Well, I think we are probably more and more learning about neurodiversity. It doesn't matter what it is. I think we're getting a better understanding, and people know more, and people see the signs probably a little bit earlier and easier. Also for schools, we were lucky that our school or teachers there are very trained. With children with neurodiversity, so it was a lot easier for them to. So as soon as you know, you have your feelers out and you can detect it a bit more. But then also the system is just really chaotic. I don't really know how you can make it easier, but I think it would be a lot easier to. There are actually too many options almost, but they're not enough. It's really difficult to explain.
It feels to me like it's also very medicalised too, am I right? And I find that interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I often feel is some people don't actually take their parent, they lose sight of what's around a child and just pinpointing. And what I really found really hard is always focusing on the disruption rather than actually seeing what also it brings along, the positive traits and also the support for the parents and the understanding for the parents that sometimes you're just so exhausted, you just simply can't deal with it. And I don't know, as I said, I'm just really early on in the whole journey, and I have met quite a few parents who are way further in their journey, or they actually felt the early years, I'm talking about 10, 20 years ago here, where there was hardly anything. They actually said, we have come a long way. So I think with the awareness that we all come in lovely shades of colours and we all have, and I like that you say not medical, because I think this is probably who we are. We're human beings. We're all coloured differently. We've got a bit of this and a bit of that. And so that's the beauty of us being different. And it'd be awful if we all be the same. So I think there's probably quite a lot of people who have some bits and pieces collected in themselves, but it's also the beauty of it. And I find it really exciting and to find out more, and then you meet more people, and then you start your inner little, I bet there is something going on. But then of course you can't diagnose everyone, but it's sometimes a bit funny where I said, I can see something there. And you get drawn to each other, and I find that quite lovely. And what I really enjoy is seeing my daughter embracing it now.
Nice.
And actually taking this. She said, that's me. I'm ASD and ADHD, and that's who I am. And she actually gained a lot more confidence. And to know, it's not, it's just who she is.
Yeah, it's validating.
Yeah, and validating, and not seeing us in that her behaviour is just really out of sight. So she's actually, and then learning now what does help,
I love that, because what she's telling us and I think is really important is that there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
She has ASD and ADHD. There's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do know for children who might be nonverbal, you know, who have a higher level of autism, it's different for them because it can be a big barrier. But I know lots of people really, you know, encouraging to be included and try and be in. But how can we adapt, you know? How can we make the environment so we can all be together?
Yeah, I agree with that too, because what we tend to do is kind of force kids with a neurodiverse diagnosis to do the things that we think they need to do, like make eye contact and be social and all of those sorts of things. And actually, we should all be adapting to, you know, and aware of what makes people feel comfortable, and that's different for us all.
And not being offended by it. Like for me, eye contact was always the thing. So why is that person not making eye contact with me? Never crossed my mind that they might not be able to do it.
Yeah.
And I've completely changed there. I said,
A lot of that comes back to ourselves though, hey, that we're so wrapped up in ourselves that we actually can't see past that. We're like, what have I done here? Why is this person responding in this way? Actually unable to think about the other person.
Yeah. It's really, it's I actually quite like, I see this as a journey and as an adventure, and you know, there are often, sometimes there's a little monster coming out and you have to deal with that, and then you're on the beach and it's lovely sunshine, then enjoy that, and it's going to be interesting.
That's so beautiful. I'm interested to hear what the strengths are of having ASD.
For my daughter?
Or what you see generally. One thing that you mentioned is the community that's kind of surrounding you, or you're recognising as a part of this as parents.
Yeah. So for us, definitely. So we are a family who doesn't have a family here because we're both from overseas. So we are really relying on our friends and actually our community. And so that's very, very important to have that along. And kind of have a network a little bit. So the good thing is in a small community, for example, sometimes if Lily needs to go for a wander, I know she's safe and people out there she can go to. Yeah. But also the strengths are, you know, there's so much empathy. You know, it's different for every person, but for my daughter, often what I see, there are high levels of empathy and loving and affectionate. Yeah. You know, they're really so little children. For my daughter, it's little children and animals. Oh my gosh, she's just in her own world and she's so caring. And that's really beautiful. It's difficult in her peer group, you know, the same age. That's where my daughter has difficulties. That doesn't work so well, but she's definitely very affectionate to younger children or other children in need. And she's actually really, because she knows herself, she's often the one who comforts others who have, you know, meltdowns or breakdowns. And then she says, it's okay, I know how it feels, you know. It's quite good.
Oh my gosh, I've got to do the top tips here and my head is just spinning because of all of the great things that Andrea, you've said to us and reminded us of, and and how supportive they are for other parents that are going through this journey as well. I would say that number one you told us about was finding your community, finding your people, and as a part of that you talked about groups, but you also talked about tuning into kids.
Yes.
Which is a parenting program that we do offer at Real Parents, and we love, and Kate is the biggest fan in the world of tuning into kids.
I really recommend that.
Yeah, and the difference it makes for parents and kids and that relationship, hey?
Yeah.
Number two, Andrea's told me that it's really important to look after you in this and fill up your cup and do the things that bring you joy, because then you're better prepared to care for and support and hear your little one. I also think Two, that in that self-care, it allows parents to let go of some of that guilt that they've felt or that shame around this somehow being about them and their parenting, when actually that time and time out to fill your cup allows parents to better understand that they can and are being the parents and are the parents that their kids need. And then number 3 is all around, for me, the words and the optimism that you talked about, and I feel kind of you exuding is about the strengths of Lily and the strengths of her having autism and ADHD, and that this is an adventure into neurodiversity, and all that means is being different.
Yes. It's challenging, exciting, and also wonderful, like life, honestly.
Nice.
Like the rainbow, like the colours of the rainbow. You need to go through the rain to see the rainbow.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks again for tuning in today. Speaking of tuning in, why not think about tuning into Kids, which is the group, of course, that Andrea has highly recommended and we do ourselves. You're really welcome to contact us with regard to that. We also offer Incredible Years Autism for parents of 2 to 5-year-olds, and which we love and are starting actually in around Augusty time again. We also really want to know if this is something you want to hear more about, learn more about, want more support with, because we're thinking hard about that in our own journey at Real Parents, and because we hear from so many parents that they feel alone in it and isolated, and we don't want that for any parent ever. That's what we're about. So please feel free to be in contact. We'll stick some links onto our social pages around this as well.
Awesome. Thanks for being with us today.
We hope you've learned that while parenting is challenging sometimes, that's totally normal. It's been fun having you with us. Keep being amazing.
Bye!